Welcome to the Battlefield Show. I'm your host, Sage Goodwin, and as always, I'm joined by Sammy Boy. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. I'm very keen to get stuck into this one, and we've got plenty to talk about today. So, once again, we've timed it well. Even though we're actually recording a day earlier than normal, we still
timed it
pretty well.
Perfectly.
yeah.
And
maybe they listened to our. Maybe they actually have some sort of like bugged devices and they can hear us off air.
Yeah.
And they heard us planning to do an earlier recording, and now they've sorted us out again.
They've somehow snuck into our Discord to tap into all of our discussions. It's just a bunch of pictures of Vince and Bella. They're like, man, these guys are addicted to this man. Man, I think we need to stop tracking these guys.
Yeah.
But today, we're going to be talking about the update for Battlefield 2042 that has brought in a bunch of fixes as well as the new map rework for renewal. So, let's jump right in. We've had some experience with it. Like we're talking about, we're not going to affect the listener, but we're recording a day earlier. And hey, our episode last week was correct. The update did indeed come on the 27th.
Yeah, true. We did. I forgot about that. We kind of called it before it was even official. So
very topical.
Legit.
And sometimes it does happen to where we record something and it's topical still by the time it comes out. But yeah, we have the whole update. I want to kick this off first off with our map rework. How do you enjoy it?
To be honest, the changes are better than I thought they would be. I wasn't, like we talked about it last week, I was kind of just not expecting that much. The foundation of the map for me is just a little bit too basic, a bit too flat. The wall in the middle, I think, causes a few issues where it kind of separates the two areas too much. I think the idea behind it's cool, but I think there's just a lot wrong with the map from the get-go that it couldn't really be fixed. But I will say the changes have made it better than I thought it would be. Now, that's still not, it's not even close to the other maps in terms of stranded and exposure, and even kaleidoscope. I think that changed a lot more than this one. But compared to what I was thinking was going to happen, it definitely does play better. That middle section, sort of between... I think it's C1. C is the flag in that sort of central building in the wall. That, and then the two D flags, so essentially the field area, that is actually a lot better than it was. It's got a lot more like terrain deviation, so it's not just flat anymore. There's a couple of hills that you can hide behind and a few extra bits of cover. So yeah, I guess I would say like it's a positive change, and it's better than I thought it would be. It still doesn't make the map that much better for me, but it is still, I can't really complain about it because it's definitely made the map a little bit better. What are your thoughts on it?
It's fine. I don't enjoy the map. I didn't enjoy the map when it first came out. Just wasn't really there. It had a lot of potential. It looked visually cool, but wasn't quite my cup of tea. The changes, like you said, they're better. Still not necessarily like, do I want to play this over, any of the other ones? Not really. It's still probably maybe my second to last least favorite map. Definitely not my least favorite, but it is still not my favorite. Like it hasn't really moved up in its ranking, but it is better.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way to put it. That's the same for me. It hasn't. If I had to rank them all from best to worst, it hasn't moved. It's definitely gotten better, but the fact that it hasn't moved kind of says that it hasn't got that much better, because a lot of the ones that it's around on that sort of ranking, you'd think it wouldn't take that much to push it above those ones, and so the fact that it sort of hasn't really moved, that's a really good way to put it, actually.
Yeah, which we all kind of thought it was going to be this way. It's fine. It's for what it is. It's good, but it's still. I think every time that they're reworking something, it's still going to come to that same point of like, it's better, but it's still not good.
Yeah.
But all of the new maps so far, they're 2 for 2, have been really good. So I think there's this really weird thing where like they're able to implement the learnings for the future stuff, but they can't go back and add a new layer of paint. It's like if you have like an ugly building, a new layer of paint or like a more appealing color is definitely going to help, but it's still going to be an ugly building. Like,
I feel exactly the same. The one exception to that is probably Orbital because, like we've said, I think that's a map that isn't actually that bad.
Yeah,
from the start.
that one has
when
good
those changes
foundation.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm very keen for that one, which I assume we'll get next month because they're not going to wait until season 3 unless it's been delayed or something. So I'm keen for that one. And then, it's kind of the same for all of the other maps in the game if they rework those as well. I'm all for it. I think it's definitely improving these maps, so I'm not going to tell them to stop, you know what I mean? But I don't think any of the other maps, unless they do like drastic changes, I think that's the issue with these reworks is that they're not really that drastic. They're mostly just like, realistically, they're just adding cover. That's most of what they're doing. They're not, and they slightly change the layout. It doesn't really change the flow of the maps that much. Like when I play Kaleidoscope, I still play the same way that I was playing. Renewal's the same. Renewal may be a little bit different. I feel like I can now use like an SMG because you don't have to run through open fields anymore. So it doesn't really change the flow that much of any of these maps, and I think that's the main reason it's not like a drastic change because they're not doing enough. And I say when I say they're not doing enough, I don't think they can do enough. I don't think it's like them being lazy. I think just the foundations of these maps just aren't good enough. So it all sounds very negative. I'm still all for it, and like I said, with these changes, better than I thought it was going to be. So overall, pretty positive about it. But I also can't just sit here and say, "Oh, it's now my favorite map."
Yeah,
it just isn't still.
It doesn't have the foundations of something like Orbital. Orbital we know is going to be better because it was already pretty dang good. Like it was definitely the one they spent the most time on in the beginning. Like it's clear. So now going into this map, which Renewal, flat on both sides. I mean, with the more sandy side, obviously you get kind of like almost like Battlefront 2015 Tatooine-ish. Like there are certain sections that remind me a lot of the one Tatooine Walker Assault map. But it's true, right?
Jundland Waste. That's a good point. Actually, it does look a lot like that. Yeah.
So that's the vibe I was getting from it, but it still doesn't have like the heart and soul of that map because it doesn't have quite the level of outcroppings that map had. It doesn't offer quite the amount of cover. But the cover is definitely better in this iteration than it was in the previous iteration. That is 100% sure. But I was still running into some weird like hit reg and cover issues. Like I would be clearly in the cover of this area and I would get shot. So I think that's definitely something that they'll hopefully fix in like a future patch or something like that.
Yeah, I've had a few, now that you say that too, where on sort of the other side of that, where I'm peeking over cover and I can clearly see an enemy and I shoot and it kind of hits the cover, even though it's hitting thin air, but it sort of like clips the edge of it.
Yeah.
I've had that a few times, which I can't really, like I'm sure it's happened every now and then on other maps, but I've definitely noticed a few times I was sniping and I was like lined up someone's head so clearly I could see them. And then I shot and it kind of like hit thin air in front of me and like made an effect as if I'd hit like a sandbag or something.
Yeah.
When I was there clearly was nothing there because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to see the guy's head. So, I definitely think there's a couple of little issues there as well that, I haven't really seen that on other maps. I'm not sure why that would be, but definitely some things that they could tidy up on it. But I don't think either of us were expecting much, and I think it's actually done better than I thought it would. So overall, I'm still pretty positive, and it's made the map a bit more bearable, that's for sure. So when I get it now, it's like, okay, I'll gladly play it.
Yeah.
It's definitely not my favorite, but when it came up in the past, I was just like, nah, I'm quitting out of that straight away.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see as they get more experience with these reworks. Hopefully, they get better and better. I'm definitely excited. A question mark with what is the one map with the storage containers everywhere? Again, that also describes all of
Manifest.
them. But yeah,
Yeah, true.
Manifest. Manifest. I'm interested to see where that one goes because I think tonally it has the right things to it, but it is
Mm,
not quite there. It's not. It's like it wasn't. It's not quite fully finished. It's not fully baked.
yeah.
They pulled
Yeah,
they
I
pulled it
think
out too
the thing
early.
with that map is like, and it's the same with a lot of these maps, and it could have even been the same with Renewal. They often feel like they have different parts. So, like that on Manifest, there's like the hill, which has got those couple of buildings up the top, and that's a pretty fun area to be. But then there's also the whole shipping container area too. But in between that, it's kind of just like you go, it's just like the slope of a hill and then the big flat area where it's like concrete, but you're not quite in that like
Mm-hmm.
the shipping container jungle, I guess you would call it. You're not quite there yet, so it's just this big open area, and that kind of goes the whole way around the hill. So it's almost like you're at the top of the hill and that's fine up there, or you're in the shipping containers and that's fine. But if you want to go between the two, there's not really
Mm-hmm.
there's no flow of how to you just run from A to B. I kind of said this with Discarded. Um, there's not like any pathway, if that makes sense. It's just like I am here. I need to get to that flag at the
Yeah.
top. I'm just going to run directly in a straight line. There's not that many like they need to add a few more like valleys and some cover to sort of funnel you into the right areas because that's where generally a lot of those fun gunfights happen when maybe you and two different squads are running up the hill trying to push. They've got a flag up there and you're sort of all funneled into this area, and then obviously the enemies are going to be kind of watching that area, and it becomes like close quarters, even though you're on just a hillside. Whereas how it is now, those two squads could just all run up completely on their own the whole way, like around the hill, and no one's really in a gunfight, so you're just running up the hill.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the issue with not just Manifest, but a lot of these maps. There's not really like I don't know. There's not really like pathways to get from A to B. It's just like you literally just run from A to B in the shortest possible direction.
Yeah. Obviously, we're all watching Andor, but I think I'm going to use this analogy. Andor, in its storytelling, tells us like through the journey, you're learning more about our characters. Like they do a really
Mm.
good job of saying, "Hey, as we go from point A to point B, there's going to be a reason. There's going to be growth in between those two areas."
Yeah.
The map design of Manifest is the opposite of that. Like there is no point to the travel in between these locations. Like you have one distinct area and you have the other distinct area. There is no middle area that like you could have a really interesting firefight. It's like run for your
Mm.
life through this desolate space to get to the fun part.
Yeah, exactly. And even like put a flag on the side of the hill, like on the way up or something, so that
Mm-hmm.
there's something on the way that kind of gives you a reason to go up the hill. Because sometimes, like, I'll be in the shipping container area and I'm just like, I could, we've got all these flags, and I'm just sort of waiting for an enemy to come along. I could go up the top, but I just can't really be bothered. It's so far to get there.
Yeah.
If there was that flag in the middle, that's kind of like the middle ground where a lot of people are going to be meeting, then you can actually go, okay, well, I'm not that far from that flag, and there's probably going to be gunfights there.
Mm-hmm.
And then even if we win that, then yeah, we're in the same spot where I'm kind of waiting for enemies, but I'm also a lot closer to the next flag that I'll just do the same thing. I'll just run up the hill and get to the top one. So I think it comes down to that as well, is that a lot of the spacing between the flags is just like so far, especially on maps like Hourglass and Breakaway. It's like you may as well just redeploy and spawn
Yeah.
the other one, because it's like it's so far and there's nothing. There's never gunfights in between. Every now and then you'll see like you'll run through the desert and you'll see like one sniper who's on the
Mm-hmm.
hillside and you'll have a gunfight. But most of the time it's just like all the actions at the flags, and then in between it's you're just running. And I understand they've done a lot with like the call-in system and putting a lot of like transport vehicles and stuff to avoid that, but it's not always possible. You do sometimes have to run, or redeploy. And it's like, I'm fine with redeploying. I don't really care about my stats, but it's like more annoying that I have to like access the menus and essentially just kill myself to get to have fun. I should be able to just get to an area quickly.
Yeah, that's a super good point of like, there needs to be a level of enjoyment and a level of gameplay that the map facilitates. You need to be like, when I'm on this map, I'm doing this thing. When I am, like you said, like there could be a flag somewhere. There could be this key point that you need to have to change the tide of the battlefield. There needs to be a reason for the middle travel. Like, it shouldn't be, oh hey, I could just I'm going to be able to get there easier and better if I just redeploy. Yeah, it's going to count towards a death for me, but honestly, it doesn't matter in the game. Like, the way that Battlefield 2042 is built and the way this map is designed, it facilitates that level of gameplay versus the one they actually should be empowering.
Yeah. The way I see a lot of these maps is, on Sinai Desert from Battlefield 1, how there was I think it was the C flag that was way ages away, and the point of that was just to be a bit different, so that that whole top part of the map was all congested and really exciting. But they just threw in a bit of a curveball and had this one flag that was just ages away. And if you ever, I don't know if you've ever done it because it was so far, but I every now and then would just run there and just because there was no vehicles or whatever, and we needed to cap it, and I was like, oh, whatever, I'll run.
Yeah.
The difference is that flag was purposely put so far away that it was meant to be it's a really pivotal one, and it's like an effort to get there. Whereas in Battlefield 2042, it's almost like every flag is that.
Yeah.
You're kind of oh, now I've got to run to the next one. And it's there's no, I'm not going to say there's no flags that are close together. There are a couple, but a lot of them are so far away that it feels like that, where on that map, I was okay to do that every now and then because it was kind of the point of that flag to just add something else to the map. But in 2042, it's not the point of it. It is literally just the fact that they're so far away from each other.
Yeah, there's no intentional design for it. It's just, yep, it's going to be far away. Why? Well, because we need a bigger map.
Yeah.
But you don't need a bigger map. Yep. 128 players, we need the biggest maps possible. But no, you don't. Are you sure, guys? We don't need this. But I think it's definitely interesting to see this level of reworking. Again, what was the other one they reworked? I played it for a bit, and then as soon as
Kaleidoscope.
Yeah, Kaleidoscope. I did not enjoy that rework. Not good in my opinion.
It doesn't really change the map that much, does it? There was, I think, the area in that I think it's the bottom left when you're looking at the overview, that sort of grassy area. That's definitely a lot better, but that doesn't. Again, it doesn't. It's just a section of the map. It's not they're changing the whole thing, and that's the issue with these maps, is that area definitely plays different. But then once you cap that area, you don't just at least for me, I don't just sit at the flag that I own and wait for enemies. I'm kind of that, which I think most people are. You kind of go, all right, we capped that one, I'm going to go to the next one. And when you're running to the next one and when you get to the next one, it is literally the same as it used to be. So it's the changes in these individual areas are good, but the overall flow of the map, it still doesn't really work. And I think, I'm not sure these maps are salvageable from that perspective to where I don't think they can ever be as good as Stranded and Exposure, because those maps, I think they've learned a lot about this, and then when they're designing those maps from the very start, they know, okay, that didn't work last time, let's change all those issues. So it's an interesting thing, because I'm not against it, because it is making the maps better. And if we come back and play this game in a couple of years, just jump on for a session and you play these maps, we will appreciate that they're better than they used to be. So it's a good thing to do, but it's not that. I think they kind of hyped it up like it was, we're getting all new maps kind of thing, and it's really not that different.
Well, I think part of it too is their approach to it. They can't honestly deliver a new map. They should be able to, but they can't, and their priorities are in other places, and they don't necessarily have the support on the amount of people or the systems internally to do this. They should be able to say, hey, we're going to deliver a whole map and we're going to deliver a full rework, but the rework needs to be, we're going to take the inspiration of this map and start from the ground up and do this. What they're doing right now is they're changing up this point right here. They're going to say, hey, okay, we're going to X that out. We're going to move it over here. Okay, let's move this section closer to this area. They aren't necessarily drastically changing, at least from our perspective and what we know and what we can see is they're kind of shuffling what's already there, moving things around instead of from a ground up rework type thing.
Yeah, it's almost like, in a way, let's just say, change it to like a movie perspective, right? You film a bunch of the footage, you do all the filming, and let's just say all of the footage that you got is just terrible. Like, it's just not good. You can't really edit that into a good movie. You're going to have to do reshoots. Like that. That's just the situation this is in, that you can only do so much with that, the quote unquote bad footage. Like the foundations of these maps, it's just not good enough. Doesn't matter how much you edit it and shuffle it around. You kind of have to, they don't have to fully start from scratch, but they have to do some sort of, one step back to go 2 steps forward sort of situation. So that's the thing that they're kind of not doing. And again, I don't really blame them, because it probably comes down to time constraints and, like you said, how many people are working on it. It could take away from future content. So it's a bit of a balancing act. And I don't blame them for, I kind of don't want them to prioritize this, to be honest. I'd rather future content. So I don't really blame them for it, but it's more in a perfect world, if they just had unlimited people working there and unlimited time and money, then yeah, they would need to really they can take inspiration from what those maps are now and try and make it pretty similar. But I think they really would have to essentially start from scratch to make these on the same level as the 2 new maps.
Yeah, their priorities should not be reworking the maps. It should be focusing on the new maps that we make are going to be the best maps that we've ever made in Battlefield 2042. And so far, they've done that. So far, everyone that they've done has been better, in my opinion, than the previous one, which is good. That's what they need to do.
Yeah, exactly. It does suck that all the base maps are not overly enjoyable, because like we've said on the podcast a few times, for me, map design is the biggest part of any shooter. If the maps suck, the game's pretty much going to suck as well. But yeah, like you said, the new maps, they've been really good. Not just, like we've said, not just good for this game. I think they are genuinely good maps.
Yes.
And we are finally getting a bit more. We've got another couple of weapons in this update. I'm pretty sure we're getting more in the next update. So it does feel like the content's coming a little bit quicker now, albeit those are portal weapons, and I know a lot of people don't consider that new content. But yeah, I think in a way, as much as we're kind of saying, I wish they would do better with the maps, like the reworks, I think they are doing it the right way. They're just giving us better new maps and a few more weapons and all that kind of thing. And yeah, the reworks are good, but they are kind of like the sideshow. They're just like a little bit of a little bit of a refresh that's not the selling point of the seasons and stuff.
It's like when you're going and doing a remodel in your house or something like that. You don't want to have to clean the walls before you paint, but you should clean the walls before you paint.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good analogy, actually.
It has to be done.
It's like a hassle. It's why do I have to clean them if I'm just going to paint over it? But it's you really should, though. Yeah, that's a very good way to put it.
But it's good. It needs to be done. They are doing it. It's good. Great job on that. Hopefully, with each following one, it gets better.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes with the future ones. Again, Orbital had the best bones of any of them, and it's going to be much better just from... If they did half of the things that they showed that they were going to do for Orbital, it's going to be great.
Yeah, I honestly think it could get up there. I still don't think it will be as good as Exposure and Stranded, but I think you could kind of put it in that conversation of it's maybe the worst of those three, but it's definitely a top map, and it could do well in other Battlefield games. So I'm very keen to see how it goes, because what we saw, like, I was blown away when I saw that, because we've seen the other two maps, and I saw the orbital stuff, and I was like, wow, that actually, like, I was actually shocked at how good it looked. So I'm really keen for that, and yeah, we're only, I guess, a month away now, so I'm very keen to see how that happens.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see where that goes, and what direction they do it, because I think that could definitely be the key differentiator on like the future of, or what they can actually do with the map rework, and if they are given the key parts of it, like what can they do there. You mentioned it earlier though. I didn't get the chance to play with any of the new weapons. Were you able to?
Yeah, that was like sort of the first thing that I did in the update, because I think there's a few like assignments you got to do to unlock them. So that was the first thing I did. They both play, well, there's three. I haven't unlocked the pistol yet, but I probably won't, because it's a pistol. I don't really care that much for the pistols. But the P90 and the Goal Sniper Magnum, they play really well. Like, they play a lot better than the M16, because that sort of launched into all-out warfare a bit rough. So yeah, they're really fun. The sniper is really good fun. It's one of my favorite snipers in the franchise, so I'm glad that's back. And then same for the P90. It's always been one of my favorites, and it does feel, it maybe feels a tiny little bit weak, but it's not like unusable or anything like that. So very pleased with the weapons. They're coming a bit faster now, so it's almost like, we're going to get about, what, we've got 3, so we've got 5 in the last update, another 3 now, so we've gotten 8 this season, and we're probably going to get another 3, so 11 weapons per season. I know a lot of people say because it's already in the game it's not new content, but for me personally, I couldn't use these in All Out Warfare, and now I can. So like, it is new content. It's been rebalanced for All Out Warfare as well, so it's really not that different from being a new weapon, because it's obviously taking them time to do all of these. It's not like it's just a copy paste. If it was copy paste, then I wouldn't count it as new content. So 11, air quotes, 11 new weapons in a season. That's pretty decent. I'm not gonna lie. That's like better than Call of Duty does, and they do have that little bit of a head start, because they're already in Portal. But I'm very happy we're getting more, because that's an area of the game that I was starting to get a little bit stale. Like, you load into a map and it's like, which gun am I going to use? I've kind of used all of them recently. Now you can kind of balance it out a bit more.
And we've gotten to the point too where you've probably figured out which weapons you like, and the introduction of so many new weapons too is going to help you maybe switch things up, maybe not, but at least get you a little bit of more flavor as you jump back into the game.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's good. I'm about to say something incredibly blasphemous. If you've listened to the podcast a lot, I actually really enjoy this Polaris.
I'm sorry, this will be my last episode. I'm quitting.
It's been a good run, man. We did over a year. But like, it's pretty good. Like, as far as like a transport vehicle, honestly, I have fun rolling around the map with it. The thing I don't like is that stupid infantry based. This is the thing that whatever they did to change this map, they made the new vehicle that they introduced in the last update incredibly effective on this map. Oh my gosh. Like, I don't see many tanks anymore, which is good.
No.
But I see so many of these freaking, like, what the heck is going on here?
Yeah, it's I see it, like you said, I've probably seen that more than tanks these days. I don't get why they make infantry focused vehicles. That is just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Make vehicles, even in real life, not many vehicles are made to mow down people. It's made to fight the other vehicles, or like blowing up. They make tanks to like be able to shoot down a wall and buildings and stuff like that. It's not really. They don't make tanks and be like, we're gonna just mow down enemies in an open field. That's not kind of the point of them. Obviously, they have the ability to do that, but it's not why they are designed. And obviously, taking that a step further, this is also not real life. It's a video game, so you've got to balance it. Anything infantry focused is instantly like hated by me. It was the same with the Bolty. That was kind of like the infantry focused vehicle at the start. I just don't get it. It's like you're making a vehicle that is just clearly dominant against. Like if I see one, unless I've got like the right class set up for it.
Yeah, and that's another thing.
It kills me every time. I can't stop it. You know what I mean? So it's just not really balanced at all. And again, I understand like the rock paper scissors element to it, where okay, if you see that, then you've got to bring the right class for it. But I can't really change my class on the go. So if I've spawned and I see a ram, I'm dead. Like, I just can't do anything.
That's my thing is they have this infantry-based vehicle. We all know how we feel about vehicles. It's not why we play Battlefield. We're here for the infantry. But they have this infantry-based vehicle. But I don't think they've properly equipped the majority of, just the balance of Battlefield of like who you can be to actively take down a vehicle is not as effective in this game than it was in previous Battlefield games. Like in Battlefield 5 even, like I could, if I wanted to, and I have, been very effective against vehicles in a way that I just cannot do it in this game, and also be effective against other people.
Yeah. I think it's a lot of it must be to do with like the setting and the fact that the vehicles are obviously a lot more advanced now, because they all feel very fast. Like in Battlefield 5, if there was a tank and I was close to it, it almost can't, like it obviously outruns you over a long period of time. But if I'm in like close quarters, I have time to hit it with what I need to. It can't really get away from me super, super quick. Whereas these vehicles, if it sees me running at it with C5, it just drives away.
Yeah.
I'm instantly out of range within like 1 second. I've lost. So I think that's a part of it. And then obviously like the choppers are another story because they weren't in Battlefield 5 and Battlefield
They didn't
1.
have those in World War II.
Yeah. So I think with like jets and planes in those old games, they're a bit harder to dominate the ground with, so they're fine. Like I've never had an issue in Battlefield 5. I've never been killed by a plane and been like, oh, they're so overpowered, because they're pretty hard to use. If someone kills me, good, like well done. You've done pretty well. But with the choppers, they have that ability to sort of like hover and just like patrol areas. And I love choppers being in Battlefield because it adds such a good spectacle, but a lot of the time they're just so, you can't really do anything against them. And at least with ground vehicles, like you can get cover, you can sometimes outplay them. Say on renewal, you can kind of like hang around that wall, and if you're playing as McKay, you can get up on top. If there's a chopper, you're dead. Like there's nothing you can do. Even like a Stinger missile and stuff, you've got to lock onto it. By the time you try and locking onto it, it flies away. Like, I think the setting. It's one of those like be careful what you wish for, because we all wanted this setting, and now that we're back, I'm definitely all for it. But it's like, man, I forgot how frustrating vehicles are in these modern games.
Yeah, exactly. I just think there's work to be done on the balancing of vehicles and infantry. I think it's good to have another transit vehicle. I enjoy the actual gameplay of it. It's much easier to control than something like the electric trucks or any of the other things that they have, except maybe for like the Bolty, the hovercraft. Like those two, obviously the hovercraft is a hovercraft. It's going to be hard to control no matter what you do. But also like this one I can feel like I can drive around with people in it that I don't know and not get DM'd on Xbox and be like, yo, you're trash.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I haven't actually used it. It doesn't have vehicles. It doesn't have weapons, does it?
It does not.
Transport. Yeah.
But it's
See,
also
those vehicles, I'm all for them. Like that's fun, driving
Yeah.
around and not being able to mow people down. If you run someone over, like that's funny. I think that's hilarious.
Mhm.
So I've got no issue. If I get run over by a car, I laugh.
Yeah.
I'm not like, oh man, that freaking vehicle's so overpowered. It's just funny.
It is.
I always crack up.
It's on both. It's
So
fun on
those type
both
of vehicles
sides.
are always good. Yeah, exactly. I think both people in that situation, the people driving off are definitely laughing at you,
Yeah.
and you're just kind of chuckling away, like, "Oh man, that shouldn't have happened."
Yeah. It's pretty tanky. Like I used it on a head to head. So like I was in the electric truck on the map, and I went head to head with it, and I did not survive, but it did. I mean, the truck didn't survive. I survived, and the person behind the wheel jumped out before I actually rammed them. But the vehicle itself, like, it took very little damage, and my car was about to explode. I mean, it's got that side of things as well, which is good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good to have something, another way for people to get around the map, which is definitely necessary. And yeah, it's good. Enjoyed it.
Yeah.
For sure.
I'm all for those sort of like vehicles, even just like regular Humvees. Look, even a Humvee with a minigun on top, I'm okay with that because like it's hard to aim them and it's not going to dominate. So those type of vehicles, I'm all for that. Having as many, like if they want to put literally 20 of them on the map, go for your life. Like that's just, they're fun.
Yeah.
It's just the ones that can just one shot kill you. It's like I just do not want that. In the game, and it is a part of Battlefield, and I always say this, that as much as they annoy me, I think if they weren't in the game, I think I would miss them because it's like a part of the experience. But you got to balance them right, because otherwise it's like they just become like almost every Battlefield. That's like one of the major talking points for like the first year and a half is like the vehicles are either too weak or they're too strong.
Yeah.
Like they're such a balancing act, and yeah, you got to stay on top of it, I think, which, to be fair, they've done it a lot better the last probably 6 months. They've really like gotten them in line. But yeah, I think it's the Ram, that like the new one that they added last update. That one's definitely like the Bolty 2.0. It just dominates.
Yeah. And like you said, like it's a balancing act. Real life, a human versus any kind of vehicle is not going to win, but this is a video game, so you have to strike the balancing act of like, okay, what wins in this situation, what doesn't win in this situation, how does it affect the broader play style of everybody? It's one of those things that you have to keep into account. Can someone actually be effective against them in the battlefield? Are they stopping people from claiming the objective? There's so many different parts of it. So I definitely do not envy the person that is balancing against all of the other vehicles and the weapons and the AE specialists, like all of the different abilities. But I do think it needs a little bit of work for sure.
Yeah. The way that, like, I think the safe way to go with that stuff is taking away a little bit of their damage and buffing them in terms of health, because that way it adds a bit of skill. So if someone is dominating with a vehicle that's not that like offensively good, they deserve to, because they clearly know what they're doing. They're really good at surviving. They know when to pick their spots, so they know if you go into a really crowded area, you're going to get blown up. Those type of players, they deserve to do well. But when these vehicles are just like press the right trigger and just aim at enemies and you will kill them, that's not balanced. Like that's just not balanced at all. So you've got to, I think they have to add that skill gap to it, to where if you want to dominate in a vehicle, go for your life, but you've got to be good enough to do it, because otherwise it's just not fun for everyone. If you can just, if you've never used a vehicle and you can just get in one and go on a 20 kill streak, that's unbalanced. Like that's not
Yeah.
These aren't heroes. Like it's different, say in Battlefront 2, the heroes are meant to be that because they're the heroes of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Like they're meant to be completely overpowered. That is the point of them. If you're walking around as Darth Vader and you've never played as a hero, you can probably still get a 10, 20 kill streak.
Mm-hmm.
These are not heroes. This is not a force-wielding like half cyborg. It's a vehicle. Like,
Yeah.
it's not quite the same thing.
Yeah, but I think they're getting closer to strike the balance. I just hope the people that love vehicles are insanely vocal, and the people that don't
Yeah,
love
they are.
vehicles aren't.
Yeah, I think it's that like it's a very much a vocal minority because they are so like passionate about it. And then the reason I think a lot of people like us, for example, that just play mostly infantry, I think the reason we're not as vocal is because we're just like in general less vocal. Maybe not us because we're like creators, so we're always talking about stuff,
Yeah.
but a bit more casual. People who just play infantry generally are a bit more casual. The people who main vehicles and go like 105 each game,
Yeah.
they are not casual. Like they're really, trying hard, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's always good fun. But I think that's why they stand out more because they'll get like one death a game that is they felt was unfair after just getting a 100 kill streak, and they'll complain about it. Meanwhile, we've been killed by them 40 times, and we're like, damn, that's annoying.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much all we say.
That's so true. The person that's going to camp out, they only die one time. But that one time, they're going to let everybody know that Liz is too overpowered. It's like, Liz is not.
I've seen it on Twitter so much. A lot of like there's actually a few Aussie, I've been in like lobbies with some of these people and they're like absolute jets. Like they're crazy good at this game and they get like one death a game and then they post that death on Twitter and like have a sook about it. And I'm like, mate, you just went 101. I would kill to do that every game. And you got to think of the other people the 100 people that you killed, like that's not fun for them.
Yeah.
And you had one death that was like a rocket launcher that you felt didn't hit you in the right spot and you still blew up or whatever. It's like, just accept that you died. Someone was better than you in that moment.
Yeah.
And just respawn and play the game like everyone else is.
Get over yourself. Get out of the vehicle and let's settle this man to man.
Knives only. Meet me at the top of the ship.
Yeah. Snipers only, no scopes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's definitely something that I think there's a vocal minority that is very vocal, and I think us infantry people, like, we're gonna be fine with it. Like, we don't honestly care that much, but like those people that do care are they're quite vocal about things.
Very passionate. Yeah.
Very passionate. That's a good way to put it. Overall, though, like I think there's a lot of discussion recently. Anytime there's a new update, I actually see Battlefield trending now, like 20,000 tweets, which is like that never happened before. So I think the
last 3 in a row I've had that. It's just like the day after. Even I reckon if I look today, it might even still be. Yeah, it is for me still.
Yeah.
So that has not happened even at like launch, or maybe at launch because it was like rough, but it hasn't happened in like a year pretty much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So I think there's a shift happening, but I do want to ask you, is it worth picking up Battlefield 2042 now? Like if you've been waiting for it to get good, is it the time to say, hey, yeah, let's jump in?
I think if that's a situation that you're in where, like you said, you've kind of been, you knew you were going to get it, just not sure when. I would say in that situation, yeah, it is probably the time, maybe, yeah, in this update or the next one, so that you can kind of get used to the game a bit and then like launch into season 3. If you weren't sold on getting the game, if you're kind of just like, it's never interested me, but I'm a bit bored, then it becomes a bit tougher. I think it's honestly in a decent enough state now. I'm still not sure I would pay, like I would, again, we've said this because like making content on it, it's a bit different, but I'm not sure if I was just a fan, I'm not sure I would pay full price, and especially the fact that it could go to Game Pass because of the EA like connection there. I'd say it's probably still worth waiting a couple months just to see if it has a price drop or it goes to Game Pass. But if you've been kind of waiting to get, if you kind of like, I really love Battlefield and I kind of just waited until it's good, then yeah, I would say we're kind of in that period now where it's actually recovered pretty well, and it's still got a long way to go. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's no longer a bad game. I think I don't load it up and just go, man, this sucks. Like this game's bad. I played a lot of Modern Warfare 2 beta over the last 2 weekends, and it is a beta, so you got to give it some slack there. But the thing with Call of Duty betas, they're very rarely broken. Like it's almost just a demo. It's not really a beta. And honestly, like it has a lot of good stuff. It has a lot of bad stuff. And after playing that, I probably clocked up 20 hours over the last 2 weekends. Coming back to Battlefield yesterday when the update went live, I was like, man, I have a new appreciation for this game because I think it's better than Modern Warfare 2.
Really?
Which is crazy. Yeah, it's crazy to say. That game has a lot of issues and it has a lot of good, like there's a lot of stuff that I'm like, wow, that's like really top-notch stuff that they've done.
Yeah.
But it's, as Call of Duty generally is, it's kind of outweighed by a lot of negatives. I wouldn't say outweighed, it's just kind of like in the middle. So it's like stuck at like, a 5 out of 10. It's not quite a 5 out of 10, but like it's stuck in that middle bracket where it's like, if those bad things were fixed up, it could go to like an 8, but they are there, so you kind of have to account for them. So yeah, I genuinely think that the Battlefield 2042, this sounds mad to say, but I think it is better than Modern Warfare 2, and I'll have to wait till the full game's out and stuff because it's a beta, so you can't really fully judge it. But it's given me a new appreciation because that game is painful to play sometimes.
Yeah, so I clocked in a good amount of time. Not as much as I was hoping for. I wasn't able to take advantage of the first weekend, so it was just on Sunday that I was able to rack in some good time. I really enjoyed it, but I can totally see what you mean in terms of there's key things that need to be adjusted. One, I'd say, is the reliability. This seems like the most broken Call of Duty beta in the good last couple of years. It didn't crash on me, thankfully. But I also I saw a bunch of conversation because I was playing on PS5. I saw a bunch of conversation of it crashing a lot on the Xbox.
I've heard that too.
So I think there's that side of things. But I think it's such a when you play something like the Call of Duty beta so close to the release of a new update for Battlefield, it is just so indicative of the differences of those games. I really enjoyed Modern Warfare 2. I think I had a lot of fun with it, and I really enjoyed Ground War. Like that is just. I know there's a lot of like hardcore Battlefield fans who are like, no, it's not gonna do anything. Like honestly, I think they did Battlefield better than Battlefield if you compare it to Battlefield 2042.
Really?
I do.
Interesting. Damn, I'm the complete opposite.
Mostly due to the map design.
Opposite. Yeah.
That is the main
one
thing.
I can't remember the names, but there was that one bigger map that was pretty. I think that was pretty well designed. My only issue with the map design is so many hidey holes and like all the buildings are like, triple story with like 10 rooms in each one. That was really my only issue.
See, that's how I play Call of Duty. I play Call of Duty the complete opposite to how I play Battlefield for some reason. Like, I don't understand why I do this, but I'm that person that will find a hidey hole and will stay there for most of the game. I am that awful person in the corner that you can never see until it's too late. I'm that person. I never do that in Battlefield for some reason.
Yeah. Maybe that's an interesting thing because I've heard a lot of like creators and just like a lot of talk about it on Twitter. That was like a lot of people's issue is that the game caters a little bit to really slow, like it's almost becoming like a tactical shooter.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you could hear like the footstep audio was ridiculously loud.
Yeah.
Which essentially
they went from no footsteps in Warzone to like you can hear them forever.
Yeah. And in a way that is like really promoting camping because if you run around and that's a lot of the issues that I have is I'm probably a bit too aggressive, which is weird because that came from me playing Call of Duty.
Yeah.
It used to be that type of game. But it's almost like if you're running around, you've got a big siren on your head that you're letting everyone know where you are, and that's one of the issues that I had with it was the footstep audio, which luckily that's like I said, that's the type of stuff that can be fixed. It's not like a fundamental issue that it just can't ever be fixed. So that's why a lot of those positive aspects are really promising, because I know that the game can evolve into something really good, and I think once they fix that stuff, I'm very keen for Warzone 2. Like that, I think that will play really well. I really like the gunplay. The only issue I have is it's like very bouncy. Like I lose people in my sights when I'm shooting them. Like I don't know if I'm just getting old or something. But you start shooting and then I'm just like almost like spraying and praying. I'm like, I don't know where he is. I'm just shooting at something. But the gunplay outside of that, it feels really good. Like the game feels nice. It feels very smooth. So there's a lot of positives, and most of the negatives that I had are just like stuff that can sort of be fixed. I don't think some of it will, because like the skill-based matchmaking stuff, that's like the worst thing that ever happened to Call of Duty, and that they've shown time and time again they're not going to remove that. So yeah. It's interesting that it seems very divisive. I've seen a lot of people really happy with the ground war mode, and I've seen a lot of people that like think it's the worst thing ever. And yeah, it's an interesting discussion, because
I think it's such a big departure.
The exact same thing as that's a good point. It's very, very different. It definitely feels like it almost feels like you're not playing Call of Duty actually when you're playing that. So.
It felt very like if there was a remake of Battlefield 3, I think this is the closest thing that we could think of in terms of a real game that's coming out soon. Like if you made Battlefield 3, like I think Ground War is a lot of what that game would look like and feel like in a way.
I think I see where you come from, like that sort of like realism aspect to it, I think, and like
that's the thing I think that hit me the deepest.
All that kind of thing. Yeah.
Like I don't know where this nostalgia comes from, but like when you hear, like it just feels like you're in a warfare that you don't get in terms of like in Battlefield. I don't get that, and I haven't gotten that since Battlefield 1. To where you actually feel like this is a real war here. Like that's what I really enjoyed about it. Of like, there's a dude on this other side that is in your comms and is trying to help you out here, and it doesn't promote the squad play that Battlefield does. So there's a completely different side of things on that front. Like you don't have that squad play, and I think that's a key part of what makes Battlefield so great. But also, Battlefield 2042 doesn't have that squad play anymore. So
yeah, that's true.
I think there's a clear comparison to draw there. But like when you have the tonal shift of like Battlefield, like don't worry, everything's gonna be great. It's like what? Where did this come from? And then you go to Call of Duty, and you have this really, I don't know. It's a very different experience, a different flavor of the same thing. But I really liked the tactile feel of Call of Duty almost. So I think if you had like Battlefield 2042 and Call of Duty had a baby, like you had like pieces of each one that came together, you'd have a perfect game in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think, like I said, there's a lot of stuff in the Modern Warfare 2 beta that, like I said, there was all those negative things. Like I was feeling them each game, and then every time I like got off and was just, around the house doing something, I was like, man, I kind of want to play that again. Like it kept bringing me back. So I know that's when it's a fun game. That even if I'm in the game, I'm like frustrated every time I'm dying to some like random thing. I'm like,
who's that idiot up on the freaking roof?
Yeah,
on that stage.
And then later in the day, I'm like, I really want to play that again. So. And I know what you mean about like feeling like you're in a war. Definitely, the immersion factor was definitely there. It's the sound design outside of the footstep audio. The sound design is like probably the best I'd say I've seen in the shooter. Which
is weird going from like Vanguard was the exact opposite of that.
Yeah, this is the thing with them having different studios is that each game does feel you can tell like this is an Infinity War game.
Yeah,
Infinity Ward game. And it's like they're very drastically different from each other. And then, the next one will be another Black Ops, I'd imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And that will be very different from this one. And yeah, it's interesting the way that they do that. And it's kind of, in ways it's good because it's like you're excited for the next, they're all different enough. But then it also sucks that like if the Infinity Ward one sucks, then it's like, man, we're going to wait 3 years till the next one. So it has pros and cons, but that's kind of where I got, when we were talking about having like a Respawn or, all these different companies working on Battlefield, that's kind of where I get that idea from, because it definitely works for Call of Duty.
It does. And I think there's a lot of that like cross collaboration that is really, really good there. I think that ultimately, though, like the best thing, whether you love it or you hate it, Ground War is the best thing for Battlefield to happen. Yeah. They have real competition on something that they have done so well up to this point.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Even with my thoughts on it, like I said, I didn't think it was. I don't feel it competes with Battlefield from a Battlefield perspective.
Yeah, no.
But I am still really happy with it being there, because now there is competition, and it's like it's only a few things away from being as good as Battlefield. They need to up their game. So,
and this is the first time they've done it.
Yeah, they've really they've done Ground War in the past, but they never had it like, it was never the Battlefield competitor. It was just like it was just like 6v6 but bigger, pretty much. They had, I think it was 24 vs 24 in 19, but they also didn't have like tanks. I think they had some vehicles, but it was definitely a very watered down version of this. They've definitely scaled this up like a lot to where this, because that wasn't getting compared to Battlefield, whereas this one is. So like this is their first like proper entry into that, I guess, conquest style mode. And I think they've done, look, for their first proper attempt, they've done really well. Like, it's, as much as I'm definitely not the biggest fan of it, I think there's a lot of stuff that I objectively like can't disagree with, that it's really solid. It's just a lot of those smaller issues that luckily can be fixed that were the main issues for me.
Yeah. And I think it's so fascinating that we're seeing this happen. If I was at Battlefield, I almost said DICE, no, it's Battlefield, or if I was in charge of that decision, if I'm Vince Zampella over here, I would be concerned, but also very excited about this new level of competition that has entered the realm here. Like, never has DICE ever been challenged on something it's done so well. Call of Duty has challenged it in terms of like, Call of Duty's a first-person shooter and Battlefield's a first-person shooter, and they usually come out around the same time. That's been the initial challenge. And now that Call of Duty is coming over here and saying, hey, Battlefield, we see you got something over there. How about we try it now? And also, instead, like, they've done what DICE has not done up to this point. They've looked at the failings of what Battlefield has done, and they've adapted to where the first time they've ever done something like this to this scale, they can do it pretty well, which is fascinating to me. It's like just someone curious and wanting Battlefield to be as best as it can.
Yeah, it's the way that they can adapt to things is it's pretty remarkable at Call of Duty. They just seem to, they're very good at just like sort of understanding the market and just being like, yep, we know how to do that instantly. Like, there's no, I don't know, they don't tend to struggle with trying new things, and sometimes they'll flop, but then they just give up. They don't keep persisting, and like a lot of the things, the Battlefield's done, they've had some failures that they try and like follow up and evolve again. And it's like, no, just go back, like take that step back, reassess, and try another thing. And that's what Call of Duty does really well. And then every now and then they hit like Warzone and like Ground War could be, like they seem to be able to do that. So I definitely hope that, and Vince worked on those earlier Call of Duty, so I hope that he like learned a lot in those years, which I'm sure he did, and he can sort of bring that. We want them to bring the good parts of Call of Duty to Battlefield without it just being a copy. We want it to check the boxes of what Call of Duty does
Yeah.
well, but then also check a bunch of other boxes that Call of Duty can't do, because that will make them distinct from each other.
I think the key thing that is the differentiator from Call of Duty to Battlefield is when Call of Duty does something, it makes it Call of Duty. And when Battlefield does something, it doesn't try to do that. It's like, oh, hey, we're gonna make a battle royale. It's like, are you gonna make it Battlefield anyway? No. We're not going to do that. We're gonna make a new Battlefield game. Is it gonna be Battlefield? Kind of. And then Call of Duty is like, whether you love it or hate it. Again, Ground War is Call of Duty. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not Call of Duty trying to be Battlefield. I think a lot of the problems that Ground War has is because it is so Call of Duty. Like,
yeah, that's a very good way to put it. Is that it's not like it hasn't failed at being Battlefield. It's just got its own issues that are nothing to do. It's just like maybe the time to kill is a bit too quick and all these little things. Like, yeah, it hasn't tried to copy Battlefield, and then it's like a poor man's Battlefield of like, oh, look at that, it tried to add, I don't know, this and that, and they just couldn't do it properly. It's mostly just like the issues it has are just to do with the game itself. Like, those issues are in the base game as well. Like, it's not different. It's not like it's got issues in Ground War that aren't there in the 6v6 modes. So that's a very good way to put it, that it hasn't really tried copying Battlefield, even though it is just Conquest.
Yeah. It's literally Conquest.
Yeah. But it's not like it's... Yeah, you can feel that they haven't just looked at Battlefield and gone, we're going to do that. Like, they've just gone, we're just going to do 32 versus 32. We don't care what else is out there. Like, we're just doing our own thing.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, it's so exciting. Again, it's going to be so good for us. All the fanboys, whether you're a fanboy of Call of Duty or you're a fanboy of Battlefield, like, they're all saying the same things. Like, this is so stupid. I hate this so much. It's like, I love it. I'm a fan of both games. Obviously, I prefer Battlefield. But the more I see Call of Duty, I'm like, man, this is actually pretty fun. But again, like, it's so good for us Battlefield fans because now there's real competition. There's an apples to apples comparison over here that has never been the case before. Yeah,
exactly. The way I see it actually is that what you were mentioning before about like, your enjoyment of Ground War, it feels actually to me more like Medal of Honor, if that makes sense.
Yes.
It's like got that Call of Duty, like Medal of Honor for me was always Call of Duty times Battlefield. And it wasn't better than either of them, but it was just a mix of both.
Dude, that is so good.
This game, like Ground War really felt like I was playing Medal of Honor because it didn't feel like Call of Duty and it didn't feel like Battlefield, and that's always what Medal of Honor was to me. It was kind of just like a pretty good, but not quite as good as either of those games, and that's kind of how I felt about Ground War. That it had a lot of good stuff and it had a lot of stuff that I didn't like, but it felt different from both. So yeah, it's an interesting situation that they're in. I'm very keen to see like whether they stick with Ground War and maybe they put it into the Treyarch games and stuff. Maybe this becomes a staple, or whether it's just like a one-off thing. I'm not really sure. Yeah.
What was your thoughts on like the comparison of it between Battlefield and Call of Duty with Ground War? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
There was a lot of it. Like I said, I kept being drawn back to playing. Like, so it wasn't bad. It just didn't feel. I think. Look, I was also testing it from like, because I made a video like, because a lot of people asked, is this going to be the Battlefield replacement? So I think I also went in with the head space of like, is this going to be that? And I think because it wasn't, that's kind of why I had a lot of negative things about it. It just didn't feel. I think the chaos of Battlefield is something that can't really be emulated.
And this doesn't have it.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's worse or better than it. It's just not it. It's just not the same thing, and I think that's the thing that I had with it. It just felt like actually the best way to describe it is it just felt like a Call of Duty Battlefield. Like Call of Duty for me has always, and I've loved Call of Duty. I've been playing it longer than Battlefield.
Yeah.
But for me, it has always been that more like arcadey, not lower quality, but lower
time commitment
game.
almost.
I don't know. Yeah, it's just like Battlefield was always like the really quality game, and obviously the last couple haven't been that. But like Battlefield 3, 4, and 1 in a row, they were like the premier like shooter, and then Call of Duty was, for me, not quite as polished and high quality, but it was also, it had its own, like, it's got its own thing that it does really well, which is the 6v6 modes. They know what they do well, and they do it well every time. And for me, Ground War just feels like Call of Duty Battlefield, which is kind of essentially saying it feels like it's a little bit of a slightly watered down version of Battlefield, which also I'm probably comparing that to like Prime Battlefield. Because, 2042 is also watered down Battlefield. In a way. But I think for me, it was just like the time to kill was too quick. Like you just kind of die before you even know what's happening. The skill-based matchmaking means that, and that's something we've never had in Battlefield.
Yeah.
So Battlefield is, I think that's part of it. Battlefield is inherently a casual game. Like you fly around, you see all the funny only in Battlefield moments. I don't think Call of Duty is going to have that. I don't, because it's so sweaty because everyone's the same skill level. And when you start playing, it's really fun because your like rank isn't really set. So the first couple games, I was like, man, that was good fun. And then once you get put into those lobbies, it's like, this, like, it's not as fun anymore.
Yeah.
Like I said, the footstep audio was a bit of an issue too. A lot of the map design, which again, that's more of just a subjective thing because, like you said, you really enjoyed it. And for me, I think it just didn't suit my playstyle.
Yeah.
So yeah, they were probably the main issues that I had with it that made me think it wasn't quite as good. But then there are a lot of things about it that really were good. Like I said, the gunplay, the audio design, just the way the game feels. It feels very grounded and like
you can't beat Call of Duty's gunplay. Like it's just not something you should even try to.
Nah, it's always been at the top pretty much. I think maybe Battlefield 5 was the closest Battlefield ever got to it, but even then it just isn't as good. Like that's like what I was saying. The things Call of Duty does well, they do them better than anyone, and I don't think they'll ever be passed in that area. And yeah, that's sort of, I think that's where each game has had their positives, because there's also a lot of things that Battlefield does that Call of Duty can't do as well. But I think with Call of Duty, their things that they've done better recently are the fundamentals, and that's why their games are doing really well, because the gunplay, like, that's one of the biggest aspects of the game.
Yeah.
Not that 2042 has bad gunplay, really, but yeah, it's just Call of Duty just nails their fundamentals, which is why it does so well, I think.
Yeah. I think, too, the reason I think I enjoyed the maps more is I wasn't going into it like... I wasn't comparing it to past Battlefield games, because I don't have as deep of a experience with past Battlefield games as you do. Like I played Battlefield 4 for the first time in preparation for Battlefield 2042. I was Battlefield 1, Battlefield 5, and then Battlefield 2042 is my experience with the series. Then comparing Battlefield 2042's maps to Call of Duty's maps was something that's like, man, it's so nice to have a small, very focused map that knows where it wants to drag people. That was kind of my thing with it, which I think it's something that Battlefield just doesn't offer in 2042.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think really only... Like, even exposure is a bit, it's still relatively spread out. I think Stranded's the only one that's really got that, like, funnels you into the ship, and then it mostly takes place in there. That's really the only map that does that.
Yeah.
I guess Exposure does a little bit with that, like, the bunker sort of area on the side of the hill, but that's, like, also just a small section. It's not, like, the Call of Duty maps in Ground War, the whole map is kind of like that. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. That the maps, I think, as much as I personally didn't really love them, they clearly were designed to be that way.
Yeah, that's
Whereas,
true.
Like, the Battlefield maps, like, I don't know if they really knew what they were doing. Like,
It's no accident there's so many
had
hidey
their
holes
plan.
on those maps. Like
Yeah,
that was a key. They even said it in one of their videos. It was like, yeah, we want to support all levels of play types, and it was like the aggressors. They even said like the campers, basically, is what they said.
Yeah.
So they want to support that, so they built it that way. It's the thing I have issue with is how. Whether you love them or hate them, DICE knows and listens to their community. It may take them forever, but they do listen to it. And I think with Modern Warfare, they're just like, yeah, no, if you don't like this, wait for the next game. And I think that's a key failing of what what Modern Warfare 2 is going to be, because people are complaining about people not showing up on the maps when you're running, the sound of footprints, like there were a lot of those deeper kind of conversations that they were basically like, yeah, no, we're not going to do anything about that.
Infinity Ward is like very notoriously stubborn. They just make their games, and look, it has paid off a lot in the past. But if you're stubborn about something and it's not good, then it's going to stay not good. Like that's the issue with it. At least with DICE games, is that the game didn't launch well, but they've always, like, that's one thing you cannot fault about DICE. They always do listen, and they really do try and fix their stuff. So, yeah, the game launched bad, but really they've listened to essentially, outside of the server browser, they've listened to everything that we've said, even like the class system that's going to be, being implemented in the next season. So, and that's something they were stubborn on at the start. And they slowly come around and go, okay, we've heard you, we'll do it. So I have seen that a lot with Infinity Ward, where like the red dot on the minimap thing, they've already addressed it and said, like, we will look into other ways of doing it. So they've pretty much said, we're not doing what you want. Like, that's not on the table. We're gonna try and find the middle ground. Which, look, at least that's better than nothing. But I don't know. Call of Duty players know what they want. Just really, just kind of, if everyone's crying about something, just listen and it'll make the games better. That's a lot of the issues that I've had with probably the last like 5 Call of Duties, is that they're all very stubborn, and I think they've earned the right for that, because they've been on top for like a whole decade. So I think they kind of have that right to be a bit arrogant and stubborn, because they clearly know what they're doing. But you still got to listen to your community, and if everyone's saying, no, please fix the footstep audio, please put the red dots on the minimap, like, those things you kind of just go, okay, fine, we'll do that. Yeah. And they clearly, they pretty much already, just from the beta, said, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah. I love that we're getting this level of discussion and this level of kind of comparison between the two. And a question for you: are you going to pick up Modern Warfare 2?
Yeah, I already pre-ordered.
Oh yeah.
Essentially, just to. It's mostly because I know Warzone is going to be my jam for years. And so for me, it's like, I probably won't play that much Modern Warfare 2 itself, but I know I'll level up when I'm waiting for the boys to get on and squad up, I'll be like, I'll play 20 minutes and just level up my gun. So for me, over the course of a whole year, that's worth it. But if it wasn't coming with Warzone 2, I don't think I would have. I know I'm not going to play the actual base game that much at all. Yeah. It's not going to be, I'm not going to, like, I've been through this, like, for, 15 years. Like, you play them, the first few months, they're always fun. When they come out, it's always like, because you haven't played in, like, 10 months, it's like, oh, man, this is fun again. And then, like, 2 months later, it's like, I'm so sick of this game. Yeah. And then you have 10 months off, and then the next one comes out, and it's just, it's a constant cycle. So, yeah, I pre-ordered essentially just for Warzone 2. I know I won't really enjoy the base game though. What about you? Are you thinking of getting it?
I'm considering it, but I don't want to pay $70 for it. Yeah. I'm interested in it for sure. I had a lot of fun with Ground War. The rest of the game, Invasion was pretty fun. But honestly, I wasn't quite as pulled to it just because of one. It wasn't quite as fun because the aim assist is just so incredibly strong on the game. Like I felt like I wasn't having any amount of skill with it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, it's like just
I
point
know
towards
what
a
you mean.
person and then pull the trigger.
It's like Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah.
You just aim anywhere near them and it's an automatic headshot.
So I'm considering it. Usually what I'll do with like Call of Duty is I'll wait for it to go on sale and then I'll pick it up then, play it for like a couple months and then drop off. But I think that the thing is too, like if you're listening to this and you're like, which one do I buy? Is this something that do I want to go this way? Do I want to go that way? Personally, the deciding factor for me is like I really enjoy Ground War, but I also just am really, probably stupidly so, hopeful for the direction that Battlefield's going. If that makes sense, like I think Battlefield has so much room to grow. And Call of Duty is Call of Duty no matter which year you pick it up.
Yeah, that's a very good way to... Like, for example, with Ground War, what we played in the beta, that's it. That's not... We're not, it's not going to evolve. It's not going to get way better. That's it. They might, like, slightly tweak some things so it's a bit more balanced and all that, but that is Ground War. Whereas with Battlefield, if you look at it at launch compared to now, like, it's grown so much. And I think that's probably a reason that I've definitely gravitated a bit more towards Battlefield in the last few years than Call of Duty, because Call of Duty is just the same type of thing every year, and that thing is very good.
Yeah.
It sounds negative when I say that. What they do as well as any video game has ever done, but it is just essentially a carbon copy. It's the same as like FIFA. FIFA's the same every single year pretty much. Whereas with Battlefield, they always do... They feel different and they also evolve a lot. And I think I have become... I think I now enjoy that journey more than the game itself. I think I like being along.
We're just straight up masochists over here.
I enjoy the seeing how the game goes from the start to the end, and that doesn't mean I enjoy when they launch poorly, but I think I like that it's 6 months ago this game kind of sucked, and now it doesn't suck, and that means in 6 months from now it might be really good. So it's I think I like that part of it. It keeps me hooked, whereas Call of Duty, it's just kind of the first day that you play it, it will be that exact sensation for every day that you play it. You'll get new content, but it doesn't... You're not like, man, this is so much better than it was 3 months ago. It just doesn't happen. So that's a very good way to describe it. That, yeah, Battlefield at least has a direction that it can head in, whereas Modern Warfare 2, although the initial direction I think is really good, its direction is actually coming to a stop. It won't evolve much.
Yeah, it's so fun and so exciting to see these two games go head to head in a way that's not been done before. And I think ultimately, Battlefield is just Battlefield. No matter what flavor it is. Honestly, I have so many problems with Battlefield 2042. So many problems with it. Mostly due with the maps, but also just communication and deeper stuff there. But I think it's super exciting to see where these two are going to be going. And I'm also very tempted to buy Call of Duty as well. I guess I'll just wait until Warfare 2 comes, or Warzone.
Warzone 2.
Yeah, Warzone 2 comes out, and probably do that. And then, considering my track record, I'll probably buy the whole game too. Considering that's how I bought my first Call of Duty in the first place, was freaking Warzone.
Yeah. Yeah, they know what they're doing. It does work. It really does. You get that. You get hooked and you're like, oh man, there's a whole extra game here. Let me buy that as well.
If I buy the game, then this is going to go well too. If I do this, I'll get the bonuses, and yeah, totally. But I think with that, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Battlefield Show. Let us know your thoughts. What are you doing in this new update for Battlefield 2042 and Season 2? What do you think of the new weapons that they added? What do you think of the new rework for Renewal? And what do you think? Call of Duty versus Battlefield. What do you guys think about that? Because I think it's a very interesting discussion to be had now. I think it was almost like an apples to oranges comparison before, and now it's getting closer to where you're like, okay, yeah, now it's like a Granny Smith apple versus like a nice juicy red one.
Yeah.
Same ballpark, different kind of like flavor for sure.
Yeah.
But thank you all so much for listening to this episode. If you'd like to support the show completely free, you can do so by leaving us a review. Helps us out a ton, and definitely lets us know what you guys think and helps other people find the show. Thank you, Ethan Clark, for the beautiful thumbnail. All of you for listening, and we'll see you on the battlefield.